So when we start looking at ancient Egyptian history, we look at the dynasties, we look at the Nisut or the pharaohs, and we say, and we think, many people think that everything that is Kemet is attributed to these people. We're going to call it Sphinx for short because that's what everybody know it as. It's dated about, over 34,000 years old. It's dated to. It's many people who look to the water erosion that's on the Sphinx and say, well, wait a minute, we know this happened, over 6,000 years ago, the flood. There's no way the Sphinx was built after that time. It wouldn't have that kind of water erosion in the desert. So then we still look at the accounts of it, and we can date it back further than that. So they don't really have a date for the Sphinx. They just know it's over 34,000 years old. And when you look at the Great Pyramid itself as well, it is also older than what they tell us. It is much older and predates these dynasties, meaning, again, none of these pharaohs who we're talking about, none of these Nisut, none of these people, Akhenaten, none of them was around when the Great Pyramid was built. And this is going to make a lot of sense as we go along. And you have to understand that because a lot of people are getting confused about what's taking place and what ancient Kemet was about. And there are little things that if you don't get, it's going to just throw you completely off in your research. So you need to understand. So again, as I talked about before in the Saturn and Satan series about the pyramids, there are pyramids all over the world. Pyramids found everywhere. Not to mention the fact that they can't date some of these pyramids. Some of them they don't even talk about. They don't really want to put a date on them. The ones that they do, goes back to before these Egyptian pharaohs or Nisut that we know about, that we talk about. Not to mention the fact that there are pyramids that we can't get to and some that we can't even really examine. We have ones in China that the Chinese won't let too many people even in there. Then you have that huge pyramid-shaped mountain in Tibet that's supposed to be like the biggest pyramid in the world. It's huge. They won't let anybody in there. It's illegal for you to even climb that mountain. Anybody who tried to document it was either arrested or couldn't make the trip because they were sick or something happened to them. So we have accounts all over the world of pyramids everywhere. Pyramids in the Grand Canyon, as I'm going to show you in the Saturn and Satan series. The artifacts they found there. There are pyramids all over, America. We know about the ones down in Mexico, and everywhere you look, when you start to look at the Becker-Hagen's grid, and you look at the intersecting points on that grid, we know that the map is scrap that we have today that we look at for us, the Earth. For you flat earthers, we know that map is not completely accurate, but a lot of people do go by the Becker-Hagen's grid because you can actually detect the energy coming from those intersecting points. And we know at almost every single one of those intersecting points that we have been able to explore, you'll either find ancient ruins, you'll find pyramids, like the Great Pyramids in Giza, which is under one of those intersecting points, or you'll find monuments at each one, just about every single one of these intersecting points of energy. So again, when you go back and you start looking at all this and putting everything together, we can see at some point, as I said, the world, everyone was obviously living in the ancient Egyptian culture, whatever it was before the dynasties. I'm talking about pre-dynastic time. There's very little information that we have that's pre-dynastic that we can look to as being 100% clear. So we don't know. I mean, most of the stuff is mythology that you get into when we go back that far. So we don't know exactly what was going on during that time and what was the customs and how were they living. But everything seems to go back there. And when we start getting into this stuff in this video, you're going to understand why. It's going to make a lot of sense. So now, whatever happened in the world to cause everybody to go underground and live in caves, the ancient Egyptians understood what that was. And when they came out after this terrible global catastrophe, they already had knowledge. The elders had knowledge and they understood what they had to do. The rest of the world was basically starting from scratch. They was learning things all over again. This is why it seems like, everything goes back to the ancient world, to the ancient Egyptians. And it seemed like, civilization started then. It seems like, people just disappeared off the face of the earth and, everybody was living primitive when it was quite the opposite. This is why people say that, the Mayans disappeared, the Olmec, they just disappeared. You go there, you find these ancient ruins in Peru and all over the world, these civilizations, and you don't find no people. You find graves, but you don't find, a remnants of these people, these civilizations. And everybody say, well, the Mayans knew something was coming and they left, and they, something happened on the planet that forced people away. The ancient Egyptians, when they came out, they understood what that was and what they needed to do to get back. And this is the thing, I know a lot of people always ask this question, what is it about us, African people, black people, that they hate so much, the powers that be? What is it? And this is something that you're really going to need to understand. I know I talked about this in previous videos, but I think, I can get into it a little deeper here in this video so you can get it. So now when you start getting into the whole teachings of the ancient Egyptians, when you start talking about, what they believed in or what they talked about, they talked about having this power. They talked about this power to basically transcend reality, to change energy into different energy into matter into different matter. This is what people talk about. This is what they get into when they start talking about, Egyptian alchemy or high Egyptian alchemy or Egyptian high alchemy, whatever you want to say. And this is what they're talking about. This power, and it's something that is not figurative. It's like literal, that they're talking about having this power. And I know a lot of people will say, well, if the Egyptians were so powerful, again, how did they get defeated? How did they get beaten? And this is what you have to understand. And this is what, I've read a lot of books on ancient Kemet, and it just seems like, nobody gets it. There's only a very few people who border on the understanding that I'm about to give you now. I've seen videos on YouTube, and nobody is talking about this. Nobody is trying to give you the truth. It seems like, I don't know. Either they don't know, or they don't understand, or I don't know. But you got to understand, the ancient Egyptians that we know about, that we keep talking about, the ones who was conquered and beaten. And I have not given you this reason before either, because I wanted to save it for this series. You have to understand, all of the great things that we talk about when it comes to ancient Kemet, we attribute to these Egyptians, to Tut and everybody like that. These Egyptians, when they came back into Kemet, remember the whole saying that we find, man, know thyself. If they were so powerful, if they could do all these things, why would they have a slogan that says, man, know thyself? Everything was about understanding who you were. So what you need to understand is these Egyptians, the ones that we know about, the ones they've been digging up, are not the same Egyptians who built the pyramids. They are not the same Egyptians who built the Sphinx. So what was these Egyptians doing? They were trying to go back. They were trying to remember who they was and understand how to get that power again. So the whole mystery and secret of ancient Egypt, when you go and you start digging into it, when you start reading all the books and looking at what they taught, they were trying to recreate what the previous civilizations have done. So when we look at the bent pyramid of Sneferu, or the step pyramid of Zoser, when we start looking at these things, when we start looking at the pyramid of Unis and Teti and Pepi, we have to realize that these pyramids, the pyramid of Necherket, who is Zoser and everything, the step pyramid that people think is so old and everything, these pyramids were done. They were built after the Great Pyramid. They were built after the Sphinx. So a lot of people come into Kemet and they think that this is the progression of pyramids. No. And I said this before. No, it's not the progression of pyramids that you see there. It is them trying to remember how to build the pyramids. Thousands of years ago, a couple thousand years ago, when you had the Greeks and the Romans and everybody coming into ancient Kemet, people from all over the world coming into Kemet to learn. Because, of course, when you go in there and you see these pyramids and you see what they was doing, the word had to get out that, wait a minute, these people know something. They know what they're talking about. They have some information. They know what's going on. They are advanced than most people and they understand. So you have people coming into Kemet and getting this information. We all talk about it. You know, Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben talked about how everybody came into Kemet to learn. So understand that. It gives more validity to what I'm telling you. Something happened. When the ancient Egyptians came from out, underground or wherever they hid at, they had knowledge. Everybody else was basically starting from scratch or using what information was passed down, through the ages when they was away hiding. So they had some power. But what I'm talking about as far as, energy wise, no, obviously, or else they wouldn't have been defeated. They could have defeated anybody. So this is something that you have to, understand. So everybody came in. They learned, they studied with the Egyptians, they got the information, but of course they kept that knowledge for themselves. The true knowledge, the hidden knowledge, what they teach in the mystery schools. But by no means were these Egyptians the same ones who built, the Great Pyramids and who built the Sphinx. These wasn't the same people. They didn't achieve that level of power and knowledge yet. They were still trying to find it. So when you look at the step pyramid of Neterket or Zoger, this pyramid, they dated about 4,700 years old. And they date the Great Pyramid around 4,500 years old. So they're saying the step pyramid is older than the Great Pyramid. And that's definitely not the truth. So they want you, as I said, to believe that it's a progression of pyramids. They did the Great Pyramid to, I believe, 2540 BCE. And it's clearly older than the step pyramid of Neterket. And the thing that blows it all away, and this is the crazy part, because you can go and look at the Discovery Channel and watch, National Geographics, and you can literally see hundreds of videos on YouTube and on the internet about the Great Pyramids. And everybody, I tell you, they'll sit there in amazement and awe and say, wow, how did they do it? These blocks are cut precisely. I mean, there's no way in a million years we could ever rebuild them. And they'll explain to you how perfectly done that pyramid is. And there's no way that you could advance so far in technology in such a short amount of time. This is why, see, people who can't figure it out, they'll look at it and say, aliens had to do this. It's no way they can go from the mud brick step pyramid of Neterket of Sneferu and the bent pyramid of Sneferu and the collapsed pyramid of Unis and everybody pyramid that collapsed. You can go from that. And then you see the Great Pyramid in all its glory, not to mention when it was completed with the whole capstone and the limestone casing and everything. Can't fathom something so great being done so fast. I mean, without some kind of intervention in technology and tools and knowledge. Never in that period of time. So if they give it a date, 4,700 years ago, the step pyramid, and then you give a date of 4,555 years to the Great Pyramid, I mean, that's too close. There's no way in the world that they can advance so quickly and be defeated. This is something, again, you got to look at and say, well, wait a minute. If you could build those pyramids, how the hell can't you beat the goddamn Persians, the Greeks? How can't you beat them if you could build those pyramids? And this is why you are all confused, because you are saying the same thing. I don't get it. And they won't tell you. They won't say it to you, of course. Wait a minute. No. That the bent pyramid, the step pyramid, the collapsed pyramids were all after the Great Pyramid, which when you really dig into it and you think about it, it makes a lot more sense. I know it's hard to fathom and to figure out, but this is what happened. Man, know thyself gives it away completely to me, because they were trying to remember who they was. The gods that they worship and talk about, all these great powers, they are those gods. They were them. And when we get into this whole series as we go on, you're going to understand how we are now them. And we have to complete something. We have a purpose here that I think nobody is really serious about getting into, which is why I'm here. Because from my research, from what I see, this is why they hate us so much. We have a purpose, and if we ever understand what that purpose is and what we are supposed to do now, and being back here, we would complete it and it would change everything. And I'm going to be the one to let you know what that is and what we are supposed to be doing and what the purpose is that they tried to fulfill before they was conquered by the Persians and the Greeks and everybody else. What exactly, these guys was trying to do, what they were trying to accomplish that is now tasked to us. And we have fallen so far, and it's messed up, but it's not impossible for us to complete, and we'll do that. The whole thing about people coming into Kemet and learning and studying with the ancient Egyptians wasn't to figure out this new stuff that the ancient Egyptians just realized. Tell us what's new. Everything was about pre-dynasty. The ancient world. What happened? What was they doing? This is what it was all about. The mystery schools, all of the teaching is nothing new. And that's nothing new under the sun. That's what it's all about. Because all the stuff we see now that we are in awe about, technology wise, they obviously had something far greater back then. It's nothing new under the sun. It's nothing new at all. So they don't care about what's new. They want to go back and figure out the old ways and what they used to do, and get this power that they're talking about. That's what it's all about in ancient Kemet. This is what people can't fathom, and it's tough for people who are not spiritual to understand.